My name is Chris Stone. I'm the creator of Blood and Bone China, and you're listening to GenreTainment.
Hello, everyone. You're listening to GenreTainment at SciFiPulseRadio.com. And we are your hosts, Marx
and Julie. Today we chat with producer Michael Flores, the creator of the gritty supernatural Western series called Western X.
Out of Arizona comes this award-winning, genre-bending supernatural Western web series packed with a gritty, dark tone that promises to reveal secrets about its mysterious world. Flores tells us about the newest episodes of the series, takes us behind the scenes of its creation, and discusses new cast member Vernon Wells, who many of you may remember from movies like Mad Max 2.
Or TV shows like Power Rangers. Now, what you just heard at the beginning of the show is a snippet from the theme song for our web series, Reality on Demand, a song composed and performed by our friend T. Sean Hardy. And you can find our web series at realityondemandseries.com.
Are you guys ready for the interview? I'm betting you are, so here we go. You're listening to GenreTainment, and this is Marx.
And Julie.
And we have the creator of Western X on the phone with us. Could you please introduce yourself?
My name is Michael Flores, and I'm the creator of Western X.
But for those of our listeners who may be unfamiliar with Western X, can you please describe the premise of the series?
Yeah, it's a web series about a guy who basically finds himself in the desert with little or no memory of his past, and he finds himself walking the wastelands of a post-apocalyptic Earth, I guess you can call it. Because that's part of the mystery of the show is where are we at? And basically the audience uses this character to find out the clues. You know, the audience is just as clueless as him.
Oh, good. Now I feel better.
She was watching. She's like, where are they at? Is this the Old West? I'm confused.
I said, I don't think I'm smart enough to watch it. I don't understand where they are or when.
If confused, that's good. You're supposed to be confused.
Oh, thank God.
It's a mystery.
That could be a good thing or a bad thing. So. It depends on what your palate is for, what type of entertainment. Because this is definitely eerie, spooky, and confusing. Because it's a mystery. You should definitely have to pay attention to everything in it. There's no throwaway scenes that are there for no reason. Everything laid out there like breadcrumbs, leading you the way to solve the problem. So
kind of like Lost in a way. Like you didn't know they're on an island. Are they dead? Are they alive? Is this our alien world? I think that was one theory.
I think a lot of people still aren't sure even after the show finished.
No spoilers. I just started watching it. I'm on season 3 right now.
Well, good thing that's all I said then.
I already know. I said this before in one of the radio shows I did. I was so upset because I was watching Arrow, and the very first season the very first episode of Arrow on CW, they tell you what the whole story is in like one sentence, and I'm like, whoa, thank you.
I know. As soon as you said that, I thought, I know which line you're talking about.
I couldn't believe it. I just looked at the person I was watching it with. I was like, really? Did they just ruin that for us? Like, yep.
You should have seen me avoiding hearing about the end of Battlestar Galactica.
Oh.
I mean, there is no. I managed to stay away from it, but I mean, I was driving down the road to work and listening to NPR, and they're like, and then on Battlestar, la 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 la, and changing the channel.
That's exactly what I did because I listened to Howard Stern in the morning. He was a big Battlestar Galactica fan. I was 2 years behind. Every time he'd start talking about it, I just started singing to myself. I don't know why I didn't turn the volume down, but yeah, I did the whole la 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 la, can't hear until he was done talking.
Yeah, I was switching around. I'm like, no, Bob and Tom, they won't talk about it, I hope.
Yeah.
Well, we want to congratulate you on your International Academy of Web Television nomination for Best Cinematography.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know what? I do it. I'm a part of the group and a member, and I really honestly I didn't really think I had a chance just because of the fact that for anything, just because there's a lot of competition. It's no longer, the indies anymore. There's a lot of big web series shows in there. And to be nominated in that group specifically, if you look at the people, that's nominated with us, I mean, we're in there with Bryan Singer's web show, the one that he produced. I mean, that's scary and also cool. It's very cool.
Do you do the cinematography yourself, or do you just direct?
Yeah, no, I do it. I do it myself. I see what happened was I set the kind of the look for the first 4 episodes, and then I got too busy, and I brought another guy on who was actually acting as my AC. And he's slowly, that was the deal that he was working with me for, half the wages he usually works for. It's like, hey, if you let me shoot this, eventually, this is what I'll work for. I'm like, okay, great. And a lot of times we find ourselves pawning the camera back and forth. And if we argue a lot, because a lot of people say, well, how does there 2 cinematographers? You guys, I'm like, yes, but it's also my show. So what I say is God. It's like God saying it on set. So I'm like, you know what? I end up winning most of the battles, but I always say, as long as it's done respectfully, I like to be challenged a lot on set, because I think when you're on set for 8, 9, 12, 13, 14 hours, sometimes you don't see everything sometimes. And to have someone question you a little bit in the right way and say, well, how about this? I'm always open to that. So I think anybody who's not open to suggestions is not smart, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of need another pair of eyes, but then you're right, you also do need a chain of command just so you can get things done.
Yeah.
And you don't want to create an environment where people second guess you either, and that's where there's a thin line you have to kind of find, and me and the guy who also shoots this with me have found it. We've worked together for about I'd say 8, 9 years now on different things, and we work really well. He understands my dumb language that no one else understands, that called English, and he's and he knows exactly what I'm saying, and he gets it done. So we're a good team.
Now I noticed, we were watching, and your costumes and your sets are really, really fantastic. So how did you manage to get such elaborate costuming and sets, or were you able to cheat it in any way? How did you manage that?
When it comes to the costumes, originally I knew I was going to have to get creative, and if I'm going to do a Western, a Western-esque, type show, first off, we don't really know if we're true. We already know you're not really in the real 1800s. I think you get that immediately. I mean, there's the way they dress. It isn't even like, what's it called? A period savvy. There's a lot of things. I mean, some people wear chainmail. If you look at some of the guys who are wearing their clothes, and I think if you look for it, you already know. So that's not a big spoiler by any means, but I think that has given us leeway as well, number one. Because if we were going specifically to like 1893, because I had some Western guys say, well, there's a guy wearing an undershirt that they didn't have in 1893. And I'm like, well, for me, that I'm not in 1893 then. So that was one way we were able to cheat things around and basically use anything we can get our hands on that was Western-ish. And also, I did creative casting, I call it. I cast the original cast that started with me were cowboy stuntmen from a local park here in town, the Rawhide, the Arizona Rough Riders. And they, I brought them on, asked if they'd be interested in doing stuff, like, sure. And because they came with their clothes. Mm-hmm. I'm like, yeah, you guys come in and just wear what you guys are wearing right now. It'd be great. Like, really? Yeah, it's perfect. And before we know it, they have suggestions for me. Like, also, hey, I brought, I have about 7 or 8 other, dusters. I have about 15 other pairs of boots. Would you like us to bring them if anybody else needs them? Sure. So before we knew it, we had a whole entire, wardrobe basically donated to us. And that was for the lower budget stuff for episodes, let's say 1 through 3. And then we got our bigger budget. I actually went and rented stuff and brought on a guy named David Staley who used to run a wardrobe service out here in Arizona, and I actually rented stuff that I needed from him. But I also made him a producer, behind the door producer, and I cut his wage in half, and he came on the project and helped us out. So that's how to do it with the wardrobe. You got to get creative, as you guys know. When you guys are working with a low budget, you have to really make some crazy deals and get creative with different things, and
have wardrobe will travel, basically.
That and the set pieces, I mean, that was built. I mean, in order to do what we wanted to do in the amount of time that we had to do it, we would build basically a mini town 4 feet away from each other. So I would have a guy build a backdrop who was just a guy here locally. Now he's doing stuff for Oprah after Western X. He's doing stuff for Oprah and Nickelodeon now. He actually got the work because of Western X, which makes me happy. So he actually built all these sets for us and would build them very low cost. He would go to Home Depot. He would go to garbage sites and build stuff for us. I pay him what he wanted. He would build them. And then about, I'd say 4 or 5 feet away on the opposite side, we have another backdrop built. and we basically transformed a bar. It was a bar into one of our major sets, and we had about 4 or 5 different sets within one.
Oh, wow.
And we just spun the camera around.
Now you said you're in Arizona. What time of year did you film?
Different times of year, because it did take us some time to finish it all up. But we did. I don't shoot in the summer. I tried when I did.
I figured that would be pretty hot.
For sure, because when I did my test shooting originally, before we did anything in the summer, the dead of heat, and I couldn't even. I was looking through the lens of the camera, and just sweat was dropping into the lens. And I'm like, okay, this isn't gonna work. Everybody close up. I'm not coming back until December. and that's what happened. We ended up shooting everything, and I kept everything in the cold. And my cast was like, man, why do you have to do everything at night and in cold? I'm like, it's better than during the day and 125-degree weather, which is what it is in the sun on the ground where we would be shooting.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because, we filmed a lot of ours in the summer, and I don't let Marks live this down that in the van, and we did a couple scenes in there, it was 120 degrees.
Oh.
And it was about 90-something% humidity.
It's like a sauna. People pay for that stuff.
People pay big money for a sauna. And we had a roll of paper towels, and every time, we'd cut, we had to dab ourselves just, because we were just sweating so bad. And I thought, man, Arizona's got to be really bad.
Well, especially with cameras. The camera we were using has a tendency to overheat anyways in the sun.
Yeah, ours too.
And also sometimes it gets too cold for it. Fortunately, it didn't get that cold where it had to shut down by any means. But yeah, summertime our cameras don't work too well, and you have to start cooling it off with, the camera guys. All the assistants would bring all these cooling supplies. I didn't even know what it is. They would drop it all over the camera. I'm like, we need to shut down for a little bit because it does get warm. Even I think the warmest time we ever shot was in April, and it was I'd say upper 90s. So it was miserable, but it was still uncomfortable when you're just standing in the sun. Mm-hmm. And that was probably the only time where we actually shot in the sun because I had no choice. The ghost town that we shot at, which was called Goldfield Ghost Town, only let us shoot on their off season, and it was right when their off season started, right when it started getting warm. So we had to shoot there during a specific time.
Mm-hmm. I was wondering if you use a DSLR, as I know those tend to overheat, and I thought, man, if he's in Arizona, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah. What kind of camera did you use?
We used the red camera.
Oh wow, okay.
There's a couple scenes I think we did where I didn't want to re-rent the red camera. I get a really good deal from a guy that I've worked with for a while out here, but I didn't want to go do pickup shots. I use a DSLR for some pickup shots, and you can't even tell the difference really.
No, they can.
If you got the right lens and you know how to light, I mean, you can make almost anything look good at this point with this digital age we're moving into. So.
Now it's amazing how much cameras improved in the last, 5-10 years.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's crazy. Before we know it, they'll be the size of your finger. and shoot a 4K resolution. I mean, it's just insane. I mean, some of the stuff. I mean, even now, Red has dropped their prices in half, pretty much, in order to come. I think you can get a working camera now for under $10,000. Because they streamlined their production to where they can compete now with some of the people that want to shoot with the still cameras. You
realize in a few years you're going to have kind of the old timer cinematographers going, back in my day I had a big heavy camera that would sit on my shoulder.
No.
It's very different.
It's gonna be the later version of I used to walk 20 miles to school in the snow uphill both ways.
Very true.
Yeah, I had a little bit of experience shooting 60 millimeter, film, and then everything went digital real fast.
Yeah. When I went to school for film, that's what we learned all on film, and I'm glad because I see some of the cinematographers today, when I say the young cinematographers, they've never really worked with film, and in my opinion, I'm not one of those people who think digital is better or film's better. I think they both serve their purpose, but I do think that you learn a lot more about the ins and outs of properly exposing, a shot when you know film, because pretty much with film, if you have a good eye, you could probably light it without even knowing how to really expose anything. And I think you learn more technical stuff and really know the ins and outs of cameras and lenses and exposure and f-stops if you learned with film.
Mm-hmm. Now, where did you go to film school?
There's a college out here that specializes in film. It's called SCC Film. Oh, geez, it was so long ago, 8 years ago. It's one of the Yeah, it's Scottsdale College for film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can Google it. I think it's on the top 5 or top 8 schools or something like that. I'm not one of those guys who ever looked back.
You just took what you learned and kept going.
Yeah, well, I got sucked in because what happened was, I already have a degree, and I went back again, years later to get another one, and it was a mistake, or it wasn't a mistake. It was kind of by accident. I stumbled upon it because I actually I've always been a writer, is what I am, and I started writing a script, and this guy I knew was like, wow, this is really good, man. Let me send this to somebody, and it's a friend of mine in Los Angeles. And I basically ruined my chances. They wanted to option the script, and I didn't know anything about the ins and outs of nothing. And they wanted me to change it, like rewrite it. And I didn't know you're supposed to say yes. And I said no. And my friends all, dude, what is wrong with you? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you always say yes, man. You know how rare this is to get something, first-time writer, to get something optioned? They were interested in optioning, and they just wanted you to rewrite something for them. And I said, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to say no or say yes. And he's like, dude, you need to go back and you need to learn the game. He said, and, your script isn't perfect, so you might want to go back and take some writing classes for screenwriting. I'm like, okay. So that's what I did. I looked up the local colleges here in Arizona, and I got sucked in because I started doing writing classes. And then I saw somebody carrying a huge 35 millimeter camera, like, past my classroom. I'm like, what the hell's that? I'm like, that's awesome. Like, and then the guy says, oh, I'm doing a film class. I'm shooting a film right now. I'm like, okay, all right, I got to do all this. And I got sucked into learning everything, and I don't regret it because it actually has been really enjoying, and what's the word? I guess it's been really fun. There we go, and I've enjoyed it.
Well, I think it helps you as a writer too, because then you understand why they ask you to rewrite stuff. You understand that if you have an umpteen million people or multiple sets, that it could be an issue money-wise.
Yeah, with the budget, things like that. There is a big difference between writing prose and writing for screenplay and writing journalism style. AP style and MLA, and then you've got your screenwriting. It's all very different.
Yeah, and screenwriting is constantly evolving too, which I've noticed. Like, when you're writing a novel, it doesn't change; it stays the same. Like, whereas a screenwriting, there's constant updates. Oh, well, last year we allowed slug lines to be right here. This year we don't like that and how that looks. Like, it seems like every 2 to 3 years, like they're changing the formats that they prefer. Like, it always stays the same for the basics, but there's things that they like to. We don't like to see like fade-ins. We don't like to see, why is this word capitalized when last year it was okay? It's constantly evolving, and what a particular lit agent may like or not like or like. So it's weird. You have to stay on top of your game.
Now, we also notice you have some elaborate aerial wide shots of the world, which I'm pretty sure are models, because I've spoken to you about that before, and you create those models. Can you tell us a little bit about how you do that?
I knew from the beginning I was going to try to give it like I wanted to give it an unearthly look, to help lend, the idea that are we on Earth? Are we not on Earth? Where are we at? And also I wanted it not to really look like any place somebody has been before or seen before, and many other aesthetic reasons why I chose that. But those are the main two. And I was like, I'm just going to create my own world and my own landscape, because I had a couple friends who said, dude, I can get you an aerial shot of Arizona for this amount of money. It'll look great. It'll look fantastic. I'm like, yeah, but I want to include some visual effects in here. And and also at the time I was already kind of messing around with miniatures and building models on my own, just kind of playing around. And that's how Western X originally started. It was just basically a platform for me to work with my models and kind of play and see what I can do. And when MySpace was a big deal, I was actually posting a lot of my work on MySpace, and I got a lot of attention on my models from there. And that's what made me decide, maybe I'll make this into a web series. And that's when I started deciding I will actually do Western X as a web series and use it as a platform to work on my models.
That brings up a good point. Besides the model element inspiring you to do Western X, what else inspired you to do this story about a Western? Do you really love Westerns, or what kind of sparked that?
I've always been a huge Western fan, but I also am a fan of the supernatural and the weird. And there's a genre that a lot of people don't really know that's out there, and it's called the Weird West. And the Weird West is pretty much anything, that's weird that's in a Western, whether it be a witch or some guy has power or he has a machine gun for a hand, and anything that's bizarre would be considered a Weird West. I guess a good example would be Jonah Hex, if you guys have seen that.
Mm-hmm.
And also another good example of mainstream would be Alien, the Alien movie, Cowboys and Aliens.
Cowboys versus Aliens. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be considered a Weird West too, and so that's what it is. There are so many inspirations for this. There's also a lot of religious undertones as you keep watching, and as you'll see more in the upcoming episodes. It's very I use religion as a source of inspiration and mythology. And I've taken so many different sources of inspiration, kind of meshed them together and I used the Western as the way to tell the story.
Mm-hmm. You used some green screen, right? In some of the
Yeah,
shots.
Yep.
Was that your first time using green screen? As a director and a cinematographer, how challenging is it to use the green screen with your actors?
It is difficult, I would say, when I first started. When I first started, I didn't know what I was doing, and I had to do a lot of research. And there was a guy by the name of Nathan Stipes who was working with me, who I actually went to school with, and his father was a model guy for Star Trek, all the Star Trek TV shows up into actually all of them. He did all the miniature work. And so I had an in with a guy that knew about models and chroma keying and green screen basically and doing all that stuff. So I talked to him and picked his brain about chroma key and about miniatures and everything. And that's how I got, once I realized I didn't know what I was doing. And then I used episodes 1 through 3 as my trial. Like, okay, this is what I can do. Let me see, if it'll all come out and work right. And it did for the most part. I mean, episodes 1 to 3 aren't, they're not as good as episodes 4 through 10 because you can tell they're a lot lower budget. They're good. I'm not saying I stand by the work for when they were done. But you can definitely see the budget increases and everything else increases as you move along with each episode. But yeah, the chroma key, it is a challenge. And anybody that thinks they're going to pull a chroma key out of their out of a hat and like, I'm going to shoot green screen, I don't know what I'm doing, which you see a lot of, like, they're in for a surprise because you need to plan everything out. It's just like anything else. You need to know your workflow or your pipeline and how you're going to edit and what your final outcome is going to be, or else you're going to find yourself in a world of hurt when you're editing.
Yeah, you're going to find yourself doing a lot of retakes, a lot of going back and doing some pickups.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you work with actors who don't understand green screen, they need to know where they're, just like even when you don't do a green screen, but a lot with green screens specifically, you need to know where this actor is going to be, because sometimes actors aren't shot in the same scenes, where their eye line should be, all that stuff. I mean, there's measurements. You have to do measurements from the top of the tripod to the ground. You got to measure the angle to make sure everything matches in editing. You can't just, get a camera and start shooting and thinking it's going to look appropriate. And
it does take a little bit more work.
Yes.
It does. Especially if you start moving the camera around, which I do that a lot more in the other episodes, in the later episodes. Once I knew what I was doing, when you start moving the camera around, then you're getting into match moving and making sure your background moves with your green screen, which is a lot harder, more difficult, I should say, than if you just have a static shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I guess you mark them with X's, right?
Yeah, that's one way to do it. That's the easiest way I find. I mean, sometimes you watch. Oh, that's another thing. Is I watch the hell out of behind the scene featurettes of visual effects driven movies, and you'll pick up things just by, even if they're not talking about it, if you like pick up something like done with 300 or something Rodriguez has done, or even like that movie Immortal or something, I think with that one guy, like something very heavily driven with visual effects, and just watch the behind the scenes and all the stuff they do and just see how their setups are. That's what I did too. I mean, they may not even be talking about visual effects, but just watch their background. I don't pay attention to what they're saying. I look at what they have set up, and they do red dots, green dots, blue dots. They have the weirdest setups, and I go, and once I see those setups, I Google it and I send my answers or my questions over to the guy that I may have, the guy that did Star Trek. If I have questions I can't figure out, and he answers my questions of what that was, and then I go back. I'm constantly learning when it comes to visual effects. I'm nowhere near done from learning.
Yeah, well, and with visual effects and with other aspects as well. I mean, we were talking about, moving to digital. It does, if you get DVD sets and they have the special features, and then you can just go online and look up videos and behind the scenes. And I mean, just about pick your favorite show. Just about any of them will have some sort of special feature on either their green screen or special effects or acting or directing. And it's really, you almost get your own film school experience if you just really want to go out and research enough.
Yep, that's the truth.
Yeah, that was never around like 2 years ago or whatever.
No, not at all.
Had to go film school or read a lot of books or both. That's the only way to
Usually
learn.
both, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Well, now you do have a special name actor that appears, I think episode 10 is his first appearance.
Right.
And Vernon Wells, who
plays the general.
He's probably best known for being in Mad Max 2 and Commando. At least that's where I remember him the most from. So how did you manage to get him to join the cast?
There was a guy, from the very beginning, I had this character, the general, planned out, and I wanted it to be, I wanted to, this is back, and when I started this, web series weren't what they are yet, and I wanted to stand out. I'm like, well, let's get somebody, that, is semi-famous, that may be old school, someone that I can afford, someone from back in the day. And I kept looking, and originally we were talking to Lance Hendrickson, which I don't know if you know who that is or not.
Yeah.
And he was on board and was like, yes, I like the idea. If I can wear a cowboy hat, consider me in. I'm like, great. Then a few days later, we got a call from his manager, I believe, not his agent. It was his manager, and his manager's all like, hey, I have a question for you. I'm like, what? What the hell is a web series? This is about 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, maybe. And this is before what because nowadays, I mean, he's probably, he would have to know what a web series is. And there's actors now who wouldn't snub. There's plenty of A-list of actors now who are involved in web series. Yeah. I'm like, what do you mean? What the hell is a web series? And he's like, I turn this into a feature, and he's on board. I'm like, well, you have the money to do it as a feature, right? I'm like, well, yeah, but it's not written as a feature. It won't it's going to be blocky. It's going to be weird. Like, it's not how it was intended. And I said, I love Lance. I said, but I don't want to turn this into a feature. If he doesn't want to do it as a web series, then I'm not going to do it with him. And he's like, well, yeah, good. Cause I don't want him doing a web series. I'm like, okay. So that was the end of that. And it wasn't Lance. Lance is a great guy from everyone that I've, spoken to. But it's the manager that didn't want him to do it. So another, after 2 or 3 more months of looking, Vernon's name came up, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I like that. And I immediately knew who he was from. I remember him from Inner Space and a little bit from, he was in Power Rangers as well for years as one of the villains. And I'm like, all right. And then I'm like, oh yeah, this is the guy from Mad Max too. Okay, great. So then we got involved with him through, the guy who got me involved with him was the same guy actually that got me in contact with Lance, and it was through a stunt guy that runs a stunt company in Los Angeles. And he says, I've done movies with this guy, and he might be a good match as well for the character you want. I'm like, okay. So we talked, and the guy understood the story and what I was trying to do. He got behind the show, and not only that, I mean, he believed in the project so much after we started shooting. And after meeting all of us, and he loved the way we did things on set, and he's all like, hey, I've noticed that you were saying in a meeting, whatever, because I keep all my cast and everybody informed of what's going on in order for I think everyone needs to know what's going on with the show. I hate actors that do the flyby, like, hey, I'm in this and I'm out. Peace. Like, work, they need to be involved. It's an ongoing web show. You need to be involved ongoingly. And so I keep everyone up to date. I send him emails. We have a group page on Facebook, and he noticed, hey, I noticed that you were looking for a little bit more money, and I would like to talk to you about investing. So he actually became one of the investors as well for the second half of the series.
Well, that's really great.
Yeah, because he believed in the show. So I'm like, great. And he's an awesome guy, and one of the most nicest people I've ever met in my life. Great, genuine, for just a real person.
Now there are 10 episodes currently.
Yeah, so when can we expect the next one?
Well, I had the other one's done. Episode 11 is done, but what I'm doing is I've been using Westerns for a lot of playing around, and meaning I'm trying to find out what works best on different things. Like I said, I used it for visual effects. Now I'm trying to find out the best way to deliver it to the masses. And what I'm doing with this one is I'm not going to release anything else until all the final 8 episodes are done, which is 11 through 18. Once they're all done, then they'll be released back to back every week until they're done. That, and I don't have an exact date yet. I'm hoping February is when we'll start rolling them out. February of 2013, and then we'll.
Oh, that's not that far away.
No. Actually, that's really soon. Actually, now I'm scared.
So you have February.
He's like
2013.
delete that out of the show.
No, I'm hoping for February because we're going to be going to the Phoenix Comic-Con here, I think in March or April, whenever they have it here. And I want to make sure I have all of them done for that too. So, because as soon as we're done, I think I'm going to take 6 months off because I've done nothing but, radio and Western X for the past, 3.5 years. And I'm going to take 6 months off of everything because I don't have a day off ever. And I think after that, I may do a short film that I've been wanting to do with a couple people. And then I'm going to jump into, there's a feature film on the horizon that I actually got hired on to do because of Western X and what I've done with that. Then after that, I'll probably jump in immediately into season 2 of Western X, and I'll shoot it straight back to back, and it'll be all released at one time. I'm not going to do this, 3-year release platform anymore.
It's a little exhausting.
It is exhausting, but and some people have said, well, have you found that you are losing interest because you take so long? I'm like, no, actually, the audience that I've built has stuck around because I communicate with everybody. Now, if I were just to release something and do, again, what I like to say is peace out, I'm gone, then yeah, because a lot of people are I call them selfish tweeters and selfish Facebook people, like where they post something, hey, like it, because I'm important, and they don't ever communicate or talk to anybody at all. I communicate and build relationships with all of my people on Western X and all of the people on our radio shows. I develop relationships with them and I talk to them. And because I've done that, I've managed to not only keep the people who've started from the beginning, and keep their interest, but I've also, managed to build over 3.5 years since we started. I've been able to build an audience that is a lot bigger than if I released them all 3 years ago.
Yeah, it does take time to really build up a following online just to get through all the noise.
Yeah, it takes time for people to find it.
Yes, totally. I mean, and it's not an ideal way to deliver. I wouldn't recommend doing what I've done. There were reasons and circumstances why it's taken so long to get everything out. But it ended up working out to where it wasn't as bad as it could have been because I've been able to cultivate and stay in contact with our core audience.
I noticed your episodes are getting longer and longer. Have you seen positive returns in that, or does it seem like the audience likes longer episodes?
Yes, because what the biggest complaint I got was, these people are vocal too on the internet, man. And they're just like, wow, I love it, and it's great. I'm like, but dude, seriously, 4 minutes? And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's a web series. And this is when, and originally I planned them to be like that, to be 4 or 5 minutes. And then I went back and I realized that most of the people wanted to sit. They didn't want to get a cup of coffee and like something to snack on for 4 minutes, or 5 minutes. They wanted to sit down and watch something continually. So that's why I've tried to get it longer. But I'm only doing it if it makes sense to the story, because I've written blocks where things should stop. Where if you continue to do it, it just feels weird and clunky. Just like, that's how you write. You write just like you write TV to stop after an hour. I wrote certain things to stop after a certain time. So if it feels right, and I can combine a couple episodes into one, then I'll do it. If it doesn't feel right, then it's going to have to be 5 or 6 minutes long. But so far, it's felt okay to combine stuff. And I've just done a lot of my editing lends to it anyways, because I edit with a lot of drawn on shots where I linger, which is what I like to do, and it helps fill that time, and it builds up the atmosphere and the confrontation more anyways. So it works.
Great. What do you believe the future of independent web series creator is going to be?
Yeah, because like you pointed out, there's some not so independent filmmakers doing web series now.
You have H+, Battlestar Galactica, Blood and Chrome, lots of high budget stuff.
Yeah, but as far as the independent web series goes, what do you think is going to be the future for that?
The future, I think, is going to be, whatever we make it, whatever we make of it, honestly, because, there's a lot of talk and I hate like talking on Facebook for hours on end, because there'll be groups, in groups I'm in where people discuss it and I feel like posting, but I don't. But I mean, people are worried and like upset that the mainstream is getting involved. I'm like, let the mainstream give it a household name. Let them do it. Let them put their millions of dollars into a show that's not being watched because they don't even market it correctly, but at least they're making web series a household name, at least, so that people recognize and understand, oh, a web series because so-and-so did one. Yeah, okay. But let them do it, because the internet is a large place. It is huge. It's the world, and there's plenty of room for everyone to play around. I don't think that you find a lot of competition as well. Like there's no reason to be competitive. It's huge. The internet is your audience, and how you market it is what will determine if your show is successful. And there's room for everyone to play. And I think the big boys doing it, the studios getting involved, is going to do nothing but help it, in my opinion. I don't think they're going to hurt. It's not like they're going to crush us.
Well, and it also will help other actors, managers know what a web series is for the future.
That's exactly right. And it is. And if it, I think I have my own problems with big studio web shows and how they market it. As I said, I think it's so many missed opportunities. It's like, why do you release something and then not like build your audience and communicate with them? Like Blood and Chrome's doing it right. If you guys have followed Blood and Chrome and how they're on Twitter, I mean, they're working their Twitter account. They're talking to people, which is what people want. You're not Snooki. You're not George Clooney. They're not going to eat every word on Twitter because you're nobody. Let's not, let's call a spade a spade. Like I'm Michael Flores. I'm a nobody. So how am I going to get people to continue to watch my stuff and stay interested? I'm going to be interesting, and I'm going to communicate. And that's what Blood and Chrome is doing. And a lot of these studios won't do that, but what they're doing, they answer questions, they tweet people, they talk to people, and they got the whole entire cast involved. So
I think it has the potential to help too. I know when we were making a web series a few years ago, we're trying to explain, they're like, oh, what's that? Okay, it's like TV, but it's on your computer, and we just kept going back to, it's like a television show, but you watch it on your computer. And it you're just trying to break it down. And I don't know if everyone even still has it.
People don't. There are a lot of people. We take for granted, because we're internet people, we take for granted that we understand web series, and that it has grown. It is on the tip of people's tongues. More people, even being because I go to Comic-Cons a lot to promote Western X, and I've known that 3 years ago, they're like, what is this? A web? What? A what? Now they're like, oh, web series. Great. That's cool. Like people understand it more. It's becoming more like I said, household name or more relevant. And because even, again, going back to the, Blood and Chrome, when I go to their Facebook page to see what's going on with them, see what they're doing, like there'll be people who just like Battlestar Galactica, and like, I don't understand, why isn't this on like Sci-Fi? I don't get it. What is a web? Like I've actually seen people asking on their status, why is this a web show? Why is it only 6 minutes long? I don't understand. Why is your episodes only 7-8 minutes? Like, so there is still some education that needs to be done out there, but by Sci-Fi Channel and doing, I guess it's them kind of doing Blood and Chrome, that they're leading the charge, because
they're like ambassadors, really.
There you go.
Yeah, and I can understand. I mean, Marx is a techie guy. I'm very low tech. If it wasn't for Marx, I probably would have no clue about most of that. So it is understandable, especially, I mean, obviously the younger generations who are pretty much born with a smartphone in their hand. Right. Most people are figuring it out as it's being invented.
Yeah. It takes people some time to realize not all videos on the web are cats.
Hey, don't knock cats.
I talk about this almost every other show on my radio show. Like, what is so funny about cats? Hey, I have this one girl that sends me pictures that's on our radio show. And she says, look at this one. I'm like, it looks just like the last one. He's flipping upside down, and it looks like he's smiling and grinning at you, and he gets 1 million views. I'm like, what?
It has, apparently, I've read about this. See, we have cats, and we have a rabbit, and I've had dogs, and apparently it does trigger endorphins. So I don't know, maybe the cat videos are keeping more people from going postal at work.
I don't know.
It's funny.
Well, now that you've been working on web series for years, what advice would you give others thinking about taking their hands?
Your sage advice.
Yes, about trying out web series, because a lot more people are doing it every year. I mean, like the people that submitted to IWTV Awards this year was like at least double or triple, I think, last year.
Yeah.
What would be your top do's or don'ts for new people?
Well, if they want people to take it seriously, and I'm not, if you want people, take time. Like, there is a lot of shows out there that they don't that are narratives. I guess the same doesn't apply to reality shows or other things. But if it's a narrative, don't reinvent the wheel. Because if you want to be taken seriously by mainstream audiences, you need to learn to light your sets. You need to don't reinvent the wheel. Light your sets and use sound equipment. Because you see a lot of people that want to just do something, and I think they're not really counting, the cost, I guess, or really calculating what it takes to do a show. They just get excited and giddy, and that's good, because that's the start of something great. Is if you can that's half the battle. If you can get excited about something to where you're going to put money and you're going to get, actors and to shoot something and spend, 6-7 months of your life doing something, then that's half the battle there. But, let's not also forget the art and the craft, which is, has been around for over 100 years. Why are we going to change it? Because I've heard debates time and time again about, we're something new. We don't have to do what TV does. We don't have to do what movies do. And I'm like, it's the art of cinema, and web series are cinema, whether you want to, agree with it or not. So that's my advice: is don't reinvent the wheel. Make sure you know how to shoot something, correctly, and put on a show. Put on a show that people want to watch. Remember, you're trying to entertain people, not yourself.
Yeah, it's like going back to basics, like you did with your writing. It was, obviously you have a great idea and a certain amount of talent, but you recognize that it was a good idea to learn how to get back to basics and learn the basics and do it properly.
That's pretty much it. It's just, make sure you know what you're doing before you do it, and put on a good show that gives the rest of us a good name, a good reputation, so that people don't say, oh yeah, I saw that web series before, that was shitty. So I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on your show, sorry, but I you don't want someone, because that's what when I said I was doing a web series, people Google web series and they're just like, wow, I watched them and I didn't really like the way they were or what they were, and I'm like, hey, you get what you get the good with the bad. There's just like short films. What web series are the new short films? 2 years ago everybody was doing short films, and you had the same problems and the same debates on how to do a short film that you're having now with web series. So it's always going to be an ongoing battle. But all I say is, pretend you're watching your show, and would you watch it? That's probably the best way to put it. Do you want to watch, a TV show on TV that's not lit right and the sound sounds like garbled and sounds like it's echoed? No, you don't. You don't want to. You don't expect to see that on TV. Then why would you expect to see it on the internet and you're passing it off as a TV show? Because that's what it is.
Is that very true?
I thought it was good advice.
Now it's pretty easy to pop your web series up on DVD and pop it on your TV, and I guess just watch that and see if it looks like TV or not. I think it's a good test.
If you have a decent TV.
Yeah.
If your computer's better than your TV, that may not work.
That's actually good advice. I mean, Mark's that's what I do. Before I release something, I have an old TV and I have a good newer TV, and I'll actually connect my computer to both of them and see what they look like on both. And if they look okay, then I'm like, all right, we're good to go. So that actually does work. I mean, you do want to see what it's going to look like, especially with, you have so many people now that have devices that are, to help them view the internet on their television. I mean, that's the way of the future. So we want to make sure it does look good on your TV.
And people don't necessarily... Do they need a red? I mean, they can shoot other cameras, right?
No, they don't need a red. I mean, we did it just because I had my own reasons. I was going to shoot in a lot of low light. Like if you watch Westerns, you realize a lot of it's at night, and there's a lot of low light scenes. And the red camera handles low light situations very well. Whereas with anything, the other options at the time when we started, there wasn't as many options as there are now. But I mean, now there's so many things you can do with, especially with the still cameras. Now they're shooting video. There's the DSLRs. There's so much you can do with those. And as long as you know how to light and you have some good lenses, I mean, and and the key is lenses. That's another thing. It's like I had this guy that told me, I don't want to go on a rampage, another story here, but there was a guy that, the iPhone craze where people wanted to shoot, web series on iPhones. And I'm like, there is a time and place for that. If there's a gimmick to it, do it. It'd be a great gimmick. It's cool. But if you think you're going to shoot an entire narrative, with action and on iPhone, I'm like, you got to well, so-and-so did it. Favreau did it on Iron Man or on Avengers, or Whedon did it. I'm like, yeah, but did you see their rig? that iPhone was connected to a lens that was the size of a missile. Like, it was insane. So like, just if you're gonna shoot an iPhone, use a lens. Always. So that's all it's about. Like, I don't think there really is like, oh, you should shoot with this, don't shoot with that. I mean, if you have the right tools and the right materials and you know what you're doing, you can shoot on anything, including an iPhone. Just have your right tools in order.
Yeah, and plan it out.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you have any other Western X news you'd like to share?
Or any other news?
No, I think we covered it. I mean, I'm gonna try to get out the rest of the episodes out hopefully by February, and and then hopefully I do have a new project coming on the horizon, but I can't really speak about it yet until it's for sure. I don't want to be like, hey, yeah, this is good, and then something fall apart on it. But hopefully there's something big coming soon. That'll change the way I do things. Hopefully, so.
Okay, and also could you let all of our listeners know where they can find you and where they can find Western X online?
Yeah, you can find Western X at the website, westernxtheshow.com, and you can also find me on Twitter at Michael_Flores, and also Western X at Western X the Show.
Hello, everybody. My name is Timo Vuorensla. I'm a director of an awesome film about the Nazis from the dark side of the moon called Iron Sky, and you are listening to GenreTainment.
Well, thank you to Michael Flores for agreeing to the interview, and we look forward to seeing more episodes of Western X.
So that's it for today's GenreTainment. Check back next week with all new guests from our favorite films, TV shows, novels, and web series,
including the cast and crew of the superhero comedy Super Knocked Up. Also, upcoming guest comic book writer Dirk Manning will be returning to the show to talk about his new book, Right or Wrong, which tells you everything you need to know on how to break into comic books.
And if you think you would make a good guest, feel free to email us at genretainment@scifipulse.net. And don't forget, you can check out all of our past episodes in the archives at scifipulseradio.com.
GenreTainment will be back right here on this channel with an all-new episode next Tuesday. Thank you so much for listening.
Until next time.